Before we actually start diving into the course, I just want to spend a little bit of time to show you how things work inside Unreal Engine, because I also want to keep the beginners in the loop as well. So I'm just going to spend a couple of lectures to show you how to interact with the interface and how different sort of parameters, menus, and functions work inside Unreal Engine. So let's get started. Now here on my screen, as you can see, I have different versions of Unreal Engine. At the time of filming this video, Unreal 5.6 version just came out. But for this course, I'm going to use Unreal 5.3. And the reason for that is whenever a new version of Unreal Engine comes out, it takes several updates for Unreal developers to get rid of all those bugs and glitches and whatnot. So I'm going to use 5.3 for this particular course. Now I do understand that you want to enjoy the latest interface and whatnot, but trust me, it's better to use a stable version over the latest one. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go in here and launch Unreal 5.3. Okay, so this is the Unreal Engine project browser, and it's going to show me a few of my recent projects that I've worked on, but I'm just going to quickly go into the film and video tab, select the blank preset and find the project location. I'm going to rename this project as Unreal_Cinematics. I'm going to enable ray tracing and create the project. Okay, so this is the main interface of Unreal Engine. On the left hand side, you can see that we have a 3D viewport which we're going to use to build up our scene. On the right hand side, you can see we have an outliner, and below that we have the details panel. Let's first discuss how you can navigate around your scene in the viewport and how you can move different objects in your scene. Then we'll move towards the outliner and then down to the details panel. So in order to navigate around your scene, the primary controls that you're going to use are just WASD by pressing and holding your right mouse button. First of all, you need to press and hold your right mouse button, okay, and then you can press W, S, A, and D. There are other ways to move around the scene in Unreal as well. For example, you can press and hold your middle mouse button, and you can see now I am moving around in my scene. Same is the case if you press and hold your left mouse button. You can see that you can move your mouse by holding the left mouse button in order to navigate around your scene. But the primary controls that you're going to use for like 99% of the time are just WASD by pressing and holding your right mouse button. You just need to, first of all, you need to press your right mouse button and then simply press W to move forward, S to move backwards, A to move left, and D to move right. You can also move your view up and down on Z-axis by pressing Q and E. For example, if you want to move your view up on Z-axis, you can press and hold your right mouse button and simply press E on your keyboard. Similarly, if you want to move down on Z, you can simply press and hold Q on your keyboard. You just need to make sure that you're pressing and holding your right mouse button. If you're coming from something like Blender, it's going to take a little bit of time to get used to these controls, but trust me, these controls are way better than any other 3D programs out there. At least better than what I've used so far, because they are very handy and very easy to use once you get used to them, okay? So yeah, let's now move on to learn how you can move your objects around in your scene. For example, let's say I want to move this floor. What you can do is you can simply hover your mouse cursor over that floor and press your left mouse button, okay? It's going to show you this yellowish bounding box indicating that you have selected this object. And then what you can do is you can simply come in here and click on this option, select and translate objects. You can also press W on your keyboard as a shortcut. And when you press W on your keyboard, it's going to show you this gizmo like many other 3D programs. And let's say I want to move this floor on Y-axis. I can simply just click on this arrow and move this thing on Y. Same is the case for X and Z as well. I just simply need to click on that arrow and just move my mouse wherever I want, okay? Similarly, let's say that you want to rotate your object. What you can do is you can simply go in here to the next option, select and rotate objects, okay? The shortcut is E. I can simply press E on my keyboard and it's going to show me this rotation gizmo. And now I can simply click here and just drag my mouse to rotate this floor. Okay. Same is the case for scaling as well. I can simply go in here and click on this option, or I can also press R on my keyboard, and then it's going to allow me to scale this object. Yeah. Now, I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but if I try to move my object on Y-axis, you can see that the movement is not very smooth. you can see that it is moving in some increments, okay? And that is because the location snapping is enabled. If I just go in here and I can disable that by just clicking on this option. If I disable the location snapping, you can see that if I now try to move this on y-axis, I can freely move this object anywhere I want. Same is the case for rotation as well. For example, if I just press E on the keyboard to bring out this rotation gizmo, if I now try to rotate this object, you're going to see that it is following the multiple of 10 to rotate this floor. But if I just go in here and disable the rotation snapping, now if I try to move this on Z, you can see that I can freely rotate this anywhere I want. Same is the case for scaling as well. If I press R on the keyboard to bring out the scaling gizmo, and if I try to scale this thing up, you can see that it is scaling in some increments. So what I can do is I can simply go in here and disable the snapping for the scale parameter. You can see that I can scale this very smoothly. So I generally like to keep the rotation snap, but disable the snapping for location and scale parameter. Now let's say that you want to navigate in your scene, but your camera movement is somehow just way too quick. You can decrease your camera speed by just going in here and bring the slider down. Now you can see that my camera speed is just way too slow. I generally never tweak the camera speed from here. In fact, what I do is I use a shortcut, which is my scroll wheel. I can simply press and hold the right mouse button and use my scroll wheel to control the camera speed. As you can see, if I want this camera speed to be pretty slow, I can just simply use my scroll wheel here. Another useful option that we have in here is the coordinate system option. For example, if I want to, let's say if I have a cube in my scene, let me pull this up on Z and rotate this on Z axis. And let's say that I want to move this cube on this direction. I'm not going to be able to do that precisely because right now I am in world space. But if I switch this to local space, now as you can see that I can very precisely move this object on local x-axis, okay? So this was a brief overview of how to navigate, move, rotate or scale your objects in your scene. Let's now move on to the outliner. Generally, your outliner is just a list of everything that you have in your scene, okay? For example, I have this cube. It's going to also be inside my outliner as well. Same is the case for this floor as well. For example, if I select this floor, you can see that it's going to automatically select that floor in my outliner as well. So all the lights, all the meshes, all the objects, whatever that you have in your scene is going to be listed in the outliner as well. As we go down the series, we're going to constantly work on our outliner in order to keep different objects in different folders and subfolders. But for now, generally what you need to know is that everything that you have in your scene is going to be listed in your outliner as well. Below the outliner, we have this details panel as well, which contains different parameters, different sort of settings that we can tweak for different objects. If I just click on this cube, you can see that we have these transform parameters. We can change the location, rotation, and scaling from here as well. Let's say that if you want to move your object on x-axis, we can also decrease or increase this value. Below this transform menu, we have the static mesh and materials option as well. The materials option is pretty self-explanatory. For example, any object that I select in my scene is going to have a material and it's going to show up in here. For example, I have this material on this particular object. If I select that object, it's going to show me that this is the material that is currently being applied on this object. Now, about the static mesh, generally what you need to know is that inside Unreal Engine, there are two types of meshes, okay? One of them is skeletal mesh and the other one is the static mesh. Now, the static mesh is the type of object that doesn't have any sort of bones or any sort of armature or any sort of rig attached to that object. For example, if I take this cube, for instance, you can see it doesn't have any sort of bones or armature or any sort of rig attached to this particular object. Same is the case if I bring out another, let's say, sphere. You can see that it is just a simple object. It doesn't have any sort of bones or armature or any sort of rig attached to it. But on the other hand, the skeletal meshes are the type of objects that have some sort of bones, armature, or any sort of rig attached to them. For example, a very good example of skeletal meshes are characters. Whenever you have a character walking or moving around in Unreal Engine, it's going to have some sort of armature, it's going to have some sort of bones or skeletons attached to it, which allows the character to move in the scene. So those sort of meshes are called as skeletal meshes. Of course, we're going to deal with both of them as we go down this course. But for now, what you generally need to know is that static meshes are very simple objects that don't have any sort of bones or skeletons. But on the other hand, the skeletal meshes, such as characters, do have some bones or skeletons that allow them to move in your scene. Now, as we move down the details panel, you can see that we have plenty of parameters and settings to work with, but we're going to discuss them as we go down the course. One other thing that we have in here is the content drawer. For example, if I click here and let me dock this in my layout. Yeah, let me just dock this in here. There we go. Let me bring this thing down here. Yeah. So this is the content browser that we have in here. And generally what you need to know about content browser is that it is some sort of inventory, which is going to have all sort of assets that we're going to use to build up our scene. For example, materials, textures, meshes, objects, everything that we're going to need to build up our scene is going to be inside our content browser. Now, let's say that you want to import a vehicle or a car inside your project. So what you're going to do is first of all, go into import and select the FBX or OBJ file of whatever the object that you want to bring in inside Unreal Engine and click on open. Then you're going to drag that object and bring that object into your scene. So the content browser is a sort of library that is going to have all sort of assets that you're going to use to build up our scene.